Hey everybody, Rhadamant here. Thanks for tuning in to episode 9 of Kerbal Space Program. So, I had a little bit of a critique from all of you, which was that it is not so interesting to watch me build ships for the duration of an episode. So I'm not exactly sure if that is universally believed in or not, but what I'm going to do on this episode, I have already designed my ship fully. And I'm going to go take it for a mission. But if you would want to watch me do shipbuilding, let me know in comments. If you would just like for me to cut the shipbuilding out and cut to the mission, I need to know as well. If there is a lot of sort of debate about it, I can end up putting it up as a poll and seeing what you all think. But simply put, I release too much content every day for me to appropriately edit everything. And as a result, I need to do sort of these long-form videos. So here is my new rocket, massively over-engineered. And this rocket is going to take me to Minmus. It just the thing that's significantly different about it than some of my other rockets. This one has way too much delta V, but I don't really care. I'm going to launch it anyway. And then also, it's all liquid fuel, just to show the difference between liquid and solid. One of the big differences is a price tag. So let's get this up into launch. Now, once you watch me build one rocket, an asparagus stage one rocket, they're all kind of the same. Now, the beauty of this thing is it is very much asparagus staged. It has very powerful engines, so it will get me to space really quickly. Now, ideally, you would want to be thrusting at just enough thrust to weight ratio to get you moving. But because I've super over-engineered this thing, I'm just going to blast my way there. Because why not, right? Ultimately, why the hell not? Alright, I'm going to start to do the gravity turn. I'm going to straighten back out so I can not have weird collisions. And turn a bit more. Now, because they're gimbaling liquid fuel, gimbaling means that the engines can sort of angle a little bit. As you can see, I can tilt them. And the liquid fuel, meaning that I have more control over the amount of thrust, rather than solid, which is just 100% thrust all the time, no matter what. Well, unless you engineer it. But it's 100%, or it's whatever thrust you engineered it at. Okay, I'm stumbling over words. But my point is, I have a lot more control over this ship than I did other ones that I built, because all the other ones had kickback SRBs, which are solid boosters, and solid boosters make for somewhat difficult to control ships, in my opinion. But now I'm doing like a proper angled turn here, very gradually angling towards 90. I could also select Minmus as my target. So just a reminder, last mission was to put a satellite in the orbit of Minmus, and we did a lot of Minmus science. So I'm not really going to need to do any of that science again. The orbital science stuff. So all I'm doing is putting this ship up into high orbit. And it's ugly, but it will get the job done. Alright, so let's do a quick little circularization. Now that we're in space. Alright, that will do. And the amount of delta V I have, it's actually 5-digit. I could basically take this ship anywhere in the galaxy at this point. And I wouldn't necessarily be able to get home, but I could probably intercept every single orbital body in the galaxy, because the heavy engine tech that I just unlocked and built a ship with allows you to get a lot of bang for your buck. Alright, so let's burn this node. We're in space. I waited until we hit the edge of space to do it. The mainsails here have a better specific impulse, which is to say a better fuel efficiency in a vacuum than in atmo. And a whole lot of thrust coming off those engines. So if you have strong feelings one way or another about watching me do shipbuilding, I think for most missions, most very standard missions, I won't show the shipbuilding, but unless you really want to see all of it. And if you don't want to see all of it, what I'll do is I'll highlight what makes a ship different. And that way I can focus more on the missions and more on base building. I had questions like, am I going to end up making space stations or mining bases? Yes. The answer is absolutely, positively yes. I do plan on that. Right now, what I'm doing is just working on the milestone missions. And my milestone missions just have me going to Minmus and landing, planting a flag, and grabbing science. But eventually my missions I'll be done with all the milestone missions. And I could even open it up to mods, like Rover Dude's mod of the colonization systems. I like a lot. I think that's very fun. So I might end up taking it there. So this ship is actually going to dip. Well, let's correct this. It's going to dip back into the atmosphere because I didn't have a high enough apoapsis. So I'm going to correct that by just blasting up. And that way I'm not going to dip back into the atmo. So there we go. So my periaps is not actually orbit, but it's fine because I'm not going to wait that long. So now let's adjust the tilt. All right, and warp to next maneuver. And I'll have enough delta V in these engines to do the tilt. Except for this ship I only have one little inline reaction wheel. And this ship is pretty heavy for one little inline reaction wheel to handle. So what I'm doing is I'm doing little bursts of engine to sort of do some corrections here. All right, wait for the node. And blammo. That's probably good enough. 0.1 off. Yep, no problem. All right, now for the transfer burn. Where is Minmus? It's over here. So the transfer burn is likely going to take place around here. And yep, that's just about as close as we can get. I could get it a little bit better. All right, periaps, very close to Minmus periaps. That's good. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to end up losing these side engines in this next transfer. As you can see, there's a little tick mark here, which is where I'm going to run out of delta V and have to stage. I do like how they added staging to the sort of heads-up display. All right. And warp to next maneuver. Now, because I have a mostly liquid or all liquid fuel craft, and all of the engines I have and I'm using so far all have alternators, I don't really need the solar power panels that I added to this ship, but I did in fact add solar power panels. I can extend them now. Because I felt bad that I ran out of power so critically last time. It's a little embarrassing. So I fixed that. And we're going to stage down to a skiff engine. We lost our mainsail. And this is the beautiful transfer burn. And these solar power panels, I have them set up so that they can retract on demand as well. They're a little bit more expensive when they retract on demand, but the fortunate thing about retracting on demand is they also can't break when they retract. Or, not they can't break, like if something smacked into this, it would break, but it's more difficult. So here's the transfer burn, and then we'll be soon landing on Minmus for the very first time. As a reminder, the last time we got there, we just set up a satellite, because that's what the mission required us to do. At this point, very sensitive amount of maneuvering. Okay, so burn a little bit more. There we go. Periaps. Periaps is really high, but it's fine. Like I said, this craft is massively over-engineered with a lot more fuel than it needs, so I feel pretty comfortable just sort of winging it, so to speak. We have a very, very short encounter here. Alright, so what I'm going to do... Yeah, this is a teeny encounter. Just because I really winged it. That's fine. I can adjust it. If you're curious, if you ever have an encounter like this, let this be a teaching moment. I could add a maneuver to adjust my intercept so that we get there a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do is... let me redo that, because that's pretty ugly, what I had set up. So if I add a little bit of speed, and I am angling us more towards... Minmus, it doesn't take a whole lot of delta V. Now, if I had done this maneuver or adjustment a while ago, we could get a lot closer. The later you wait to do adjustments like this, the more likely it's going to take a lot more fuel. So I could have made a like 1 meter delta V adjustment a long time ago, but now I'm stuck doing a like, you know, I'm not even going to do that maneuver. I'm just going to continue out. Here is my intercept. And I'll just... whoa. That was overkill. I'll circularize right now. Which is basically a retrograde burn. And this ship has a crazy amount of delta V. Way, way, way over-engineered. I get that. I know some people were complaining that my ships were like over-engineered monstrosities. You're not wrong. I just don't care. If you got to get it right in one take, sometimes it's easier to over-engineer it. So this brings my periaps at only about 60k, which is good for landing. So now we are properly orbiting. And wow, I'm going to be at really, really low. We're going to be zipping over Minmus Mountains, which will be kind of cool. I actually like a low orbit. So let's go to the next maneuver. I'm just pointing the ship at the angle that the next maneuver will take place at, which is another retrograde burn. And nope, stop. Warp to next maneuver. Now a lot of time has to pass because we're moving really, really slowly in relation to Minmus. And then I get to pick basically where I want to land. which is beautiful. So I'm probably going to want to land in the day. I don't have lights on this thing because, you know, I forget these things. But let's go for the view. So Minmus looks like this. It's just like one big icy ball. It's a little rocky, but it's mostly just one big icy ball. And then also, take notice, see these lines here? These are our relay lines. So if I had an unmanned ship, we would need, I'd probably, first off, have an antenna on my ship, because at the moment I don't have an antenna on this one. So we are connecting to this relay really weakly. As you can see, the signal strength sucks. But if you want to have unmanned missions, you would need a relay network once you sort of leave the range of Kerbal. Alright, so I'm just going to eyeball this deorbit here. And accelerate time. And we'll try to land in this big flat area here. It's going to be really easy to do that. So here's my next maneuver. And as you can see, I set up the ship to have landing gear up a stage. But if I can land perfectly on my liquid fuel skiff engine, I'm going to try that. Just because it's more challenging, I suppose. So now, right now, I'm adjusting the angle at which I'm coming in, so I land in the icy flats. And not each one of these flat areas, but a lot of these flat areas are their own biome. And then I'm going to accelerate time until I'm flying over one of the flats, like that. Perfect. And then, now that I'm hovering over it, as you can see here, I'm going to cut my horizontal velocity so I can come gently straight down. And we'll see if I can't land straight up and down. The worry here is Minmus has very, 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 very low gravity. So what ends up happening, if you're not careful, is you can bounce pretty easily. So you have to be very, very gentle with your landings. The higher the gravity, the more the planet will keep you from bouncing. So Minmus has extraordinarily low gravity, so bouncing is a risk. We just hit a milestone of suborbital flight. Cool. And then we are pretty low. We still have a few thousand left to go, so I'm going to physics warp it, which is holding left alt and accelerating time. And I'm going to cut most of my speed here. Somewhat of a suicide burn. It's not a very powerful engine I have here, given the weight of the ship. Luckily, I do have power and I have inline stability, so this ship is a lot more controllable than the last one. And I'm gonna gently, gently feather my way down. And see if I can't land on my engines. Donk. Yep, there we go. Whew, alright, let's do some science. I'm really worried about tipping. Oh, I'm paranoid. Alright, so material study. Good. And we just completed a bunch of contracts, like landing, etc., etc. Oh my god, I'm so worried about tipping. Let's open the service bay and log some pressure data. Get some goo going. I'll probably double up on all the science, because there is some science has diminishing returns, some doesn't. It's a little seismic analysis, and we'll get redundant sets of data. I bet when NASA does a experiment, they probably want redundant sets of data just to make sure that they can identify outliers and mistakes and things like that. Okay, let's close the doors on the Science Junior. and EVA. Now I have to be very careful about letting go and not smacking into this. If I EVA'd my jet suit into the craft, I could very easily tip the craft over and maroon myself, and then I'd be stuck doing a rescue mission for Jeb. So EVA report. I'm at Minmus Lesser Flats. Cool. Let's take a surface sample, which should be ice, because it's icy flats, I think, and plant our flag for the other mission that I had. I like to label the flag the name of the biome so that I can keep track. And then just to show how low the gravity is, here's me walking. And then here's me jumping unaided by jetpack. Air Jordan, man. I am Air Jordan. All right. So we've done all the sciencey stuff we need to do here. I need to very, very, very gently reboard the ship. Because I don't want to bonk it. Board. Cool. And where are we in relation to Kerbal? Okay. Go ahead with the blast off. Now, because Minmus is so small and has so low gravity, its escape velocity is very small. It does not take a lot of rocket power to get off of Minmus or to circularize orbit or anything like that. That's actually one of the reasons why, before trying to colonize Mars or whatever, why having a Earth shipyard or a shipyard built on the moon would make a lot of sense. Because the moon's gravity is about a sixth of that on Earth with no atmosphere. It's actually a lot more fuel efficient to build ships on the moon and blast them off than if you were to try to, you know, take them off of Earth. Earth has obviously a thick atmosphere, or I don't know. It's not thick in relation to like Venus, but a thicker atmosphere than certainly Mars, and thicker than a lot of these celestial bodies in our solar system. A lot of the celestial bodies in our solar system have, you know, if you're counting satellites, moons and things, most moons don't really have an atmosphere. Most of the moons in our solar system are sort of rocky, giant asteroids with enough gravities to make them circular. Some moons are more interesting than that, but most of them are just that. All right, and now for the getting back to Kerbal burn. Obviously, that is not where I want my maneuver. I want my maneuver more like here, and that gets me a lot closer, as you can see. All right, and what we'll try to do, given my ship, is I will attempt to try to get as close to Kerbal Space Center as I can. You know what I just realized? I don't have a heat shield on this ship, so it's going to be engine burning all the way down, which is fun. I love overlooking something critically important, don't you? But it's levels of challenge, I guess. All right, let's warp to next maneuver. Now, if you don't have a heat shield, there's several ways to do it. You can very lightly skim the atmosphere, where you're not going to generate a lot of heat, but you will slow down eventually, just continuing to skim the atmosphere, which is one way to reorbit. It will take a very, very long time, and that won't work on anything that doesn't have atmosphere. All right, because I have so much beautiful fuel, I will do some big maneuvers. So now what I'm trying to do is establish a nice orbit around Kerbin so that I can re-enter safely. I don't know why I didn't add in any heat shields. That's a bit of an oversight. At least I know it now. It'd be really bad if I thought I had and I hadn't, and I go to re-enter and I burn up like a French fry. So as you can see, there's a little bit of tilt here. I'm not perfectly aligned with Kerbin's equator or anything like that. It's not that big of a deal. Just a rough equatorial orbit will make a landing on Kerbal Space Center easy. And I'm going to go past my my maneuver here and bring it in even more. There we go. And we'll just make that nice and circular, more or less. All of this is pretty unnecessary, I will grant you. I could just do a not a suicide burn, but a atmo burn into Kerbin. But I'd like to be a little bit more accurate than that. And without the aid of a mod that will help me calculate aerobraking, the easiest way is to come down in a controlled fashion. I have so much Delta V left. I could, like, land on the moon, come back to Kerbin, land on the moon, come back to Kerbin, if I wanted to, with the amount of fuel that I have. Which is kind of funny. So my thrust-to-weight ratio for my next phase is above 1, which means that I have enough to actually land without parachutes at all. Maybe that should be my goal. That could be fun. Alright, we're still in pretty high orbit here. So I am going to burn retrograde and bring this periaps pretty low, just so that I can more carefully land on Kerbal Space Center. As you can see, we still have somewhat of the Minmus tilt, but we can still get to Kerbal Space Center that way. No matter what your orbit around a planet is, you're eventually going to go over the point where you want to land. Might take a while. Well, that's actually not true. But certain orbits will always get you there. Alright, so here's my next maneuver, and we'll gun it. And we're going to run out of fuel in our skiff stage doing this burn. Skiff stage is about to be dead. There it goes. Now for the quad terriers. And these also have landing legs. Alright, nice. Let's warp to here. Actually, even less than that. Warp to here and start to do our deorbit. It looks like we'll be, well, actually, let me time accelerate so that we can land during the day. just so that it's better for you to look at. Which means we have to accelerate time a bit, because it's just after sunset at Kerbal Space Center. It'll be, depending on the timing of this, maybe we'll be landing around midday. Now it's about midnight, or just before midnight. Now it's about midnight there. And as you could tell, we're on the opposite, the sun is on the opposite side of Kerbin, so that's sort of how you tell the time of day. So one more orbit around Kerbin, and we should be ready to land somewhere around daytime. So yeah, as you can see, I'm obviously orbiting Kerbin faster than Kerbin is rotating. And that is just the way it works. The International Space Station, for instance, takes about 90 minutes to rotate the Earth. Geostationary satellites would take 24 hours. That's the way that geostationary satellites work. Geostationary satellites have a much higher orbit, but because they have a much higher orbit, they rotate around Earth, or in this case Kerbin, but Earth at the same speed that Earth rotates, so that they're always above the same geographical location on Earth. And that's the way GPSs work. We have a network of geostationary satellites. Geostationary satellites are a lot higher in orbit, and they have to be very precise, meaning that a geostationary satellite is a lot more expensive than a low Earth satellite that might be used for communications or something like that. All right, let's plan on landing around breakfast time so we can get tea and crumpets back from the Kerbal Space Center. So there's our next maneuver. And as I mentioned, we're going to have to engine brake this thing at least a bit. We do have parachutes. It's not like I left without a parachute, but... Alright, so now we're entering the atmosphere. I'm going to do a slight adjustment here where we angle so that we're flying more over Kerbal Space Center. There we go. And now I'm going to have to retrograde this so that we don't burn up terribly in a hellfire. Now we have enough delta V and thrust to weight to stop our descent. And I also have deployed the landing legs to, you know, cause a little bit extra drag. I don't know if that's going to be that big of a factor. The atmosphere is still going to slow us down. I just really hope that we don't cook ourselves. This is fun, right? Now we're flying over KSC a little bit. I'll actually be down to 2 engines really soon, which means I won't have the thrust to weight that I need. Unless I sort of like wildly refuel my craft. Alright, I'm not going to be able to refuel my craft on the fly like that. with enough space to land. So at this point, let's go ahead and use the drogue chutes. And let's see if we have enough parachute power to land with our giant XL parachute only. And actually, at this point, we could engine land a little bit. I need to leave this up. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. When asparagus staging betrays you. All right. We don't quite have enough weight sorted out. And also, given the way I'm refueling these engines, there is a balance problem. But that's okay. I still have a little bit of wiggle room here. So we can engine brake the last few feet. We're going to come down a little hard, but the rest of the craft has survived. Well, that was a crazy, messy mission, and I loved every second of it. Let's recover. We're going to get a whole lot of science and complete all the missions. Now, if I really didn't want to risk the engine braking, I could have just jettisoned those phases. So we got 623 science, more than a typical MUN mission. Typical MUN mission's about 4-ish. You get a little bit more bang for the buck going to Minmus. And then for parts, crew leveled up a little bit. Parts, I got 96% refunded. And we have over 1 million. We made a lot of money there. Mission control. Let's see. Our next mission, dock 2 vessels on the ground around the MUN, is our next milestone mission. So if we're headed back to the MUN, I'm going to accept all the MUN and Minmus missions I can. Build a surface. Okay, well, those are the contracts that I know I'm going to end up doing. If you have any feedback for me, of course, always feel free to share. Drop me a line. If you like this episode, let me know why. Once again, I'll just reiterate, if you think I should cut out the shipbuilding, let me know. If you think I should highlight what makes the ship different from one another, I'm good with that too. And if you think you want to see full shipbuilding, you got to let me know that as well. If you have any other feedback of any sort, let me know, and I'll catch you all next time. Thank you all for watching. Adios.